2 balls and a strike to count on Taylor. Reyes fires, swinging a drive, deep left field. It's his way back. Walk the ball. Chris Taylor.
What's up, everyone? Welcome into DodgerHeads Live, presented by DodgerBlue.com, part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined tonight by AJ Gonzalez. AJ, 2 rookie pitchers, 2 wins in Atlanta. It's a good time to be a Dodgers fan right now.
Indeed. Loved Bobby Miller tonight.
Yeah, so Bobby Miller will be the story. We'll talk all about his 5 innings, getting his first major league win. We'll have some notes on the offense, which AJ, as you pointed out to me right as we were coming on, is kind of hitting its stride as we go. We'll get to some live question and answer as we go, but let's start with Bobby Miller. This is the Dodgers' top pitching prospect. We knew kind of what the scouting report was coming in, velocity. I'm going to be honest, seeing AJ, that very first pitch, clock in at 100 miles an hour, getting it out. I mean, there's just something about seeing triple digits when a guy throws a fastball.
Yeah, I mean, you would have thought with the butterflies, he was definitely going to throw hard, but I mean, he just throws really, really hard. And we'll get into it more, I'm sure, as we go, but like, it wasn't even just the triple digits. It was that, a lot of guys in their first debut understandably have just huge butterflies, can't quite get settled in.
Yeah.
Miller just got better as the innings went. Like, he really settled in.
I'm glad you said that, because I thought the same thing. The best inning that Bobby Miller had was the 5th inning, his last inning. The pitch count got higher than I even expected it to, but he comes out in this one. He gives up a run in the first inning, I believe, with 2 outs. He kind of looked like he was going to get him be fine. He gets 2 quick outs, but a single and a double with 2 outs. Austin Riley with the RBI double, and the Dodgers thankfully scored in the first on a Will Smith RBI single. So it's 1-1 after 1. But from there, I mean, he settled down. His final line in this one was 5 innings, 4 hits, 1 earned, 1 walk, 5 strikeouts. 2 of the 4 hits came in the first inning. The 1 earned run came in the first inning. So innings 2 through 5, 4 innings, 2 hits, 1 walk, 5 strikeouts. For a guy in his debut, I mean, AJ, for me, one thing I would say is seeing Gavin Stone, who wasn't as highly rated as a prospect, but I think the general consensus was probably a little bit more major league ready, a little bit more a guy who might be able to adapt to the major league game more quickly. For Stone to struggle 2 games in a row, and then for Miller to come in and look as good as he did, I think there was a little bit of luck. There was a lot of batted ball stuff. The whiff rate wasn't necessarily elite, but as the game went on, the changeup looked nasty. The slider looked nasty. We're going to talk about it. I mean, the fastball was the pitch he threw the 3rd most. So you hear about the 100 mile an hour and think it's a guy who's just pumping fastballs. He threw more sliders and changeups than he did fastballs. So I was just really impressed at the way that he was able to settle in and get into a groove and then continue to get better and better, as you were saying.
Yeah. That this is the major leagues. And on top of this being the major leagues, this is the Atlanta Braves, a legitimately World Series contender lineup. And so those first few 100 mile an hour pitches, they were roping him, and it was concerning at first, but he really, for me, what makes the biggest difference in this debut was that he found poise that a player much more mature than him usually has to have.
Yeah.
He figured out that they were on his fastball a little bit more. He threw a lot more of the off-speed stuff, the changeup, which was pretty nasty. And that's the thing that, I think the brass and Dodger fans too, when you see that, when you see a young kid in his debut adjust and have the poise to adjust and figure out how to get guys out, that was all I needed to see.
Yeah, so we mentioned the first inning. He gets out of trouble there, strands a guy at second base, and then bounces back in the second with a quick inning. The 3rd inning, there's a runner on second with nobody out. He gets a strikeout, a ground out, fly out, strands that runner. 4th inning, there's a runner at 3rd with 1 out, gets a key strikeout there, and then a ground out. So kind of working himself out of trouble in both the 3rd and the 4th. But again, we keep coming back to it. Then he comes back in the 5th and strikeout of Hilliard, ground out of Acuna, Olsen strikeout. I mean, he struck out, what was it? 3 of the last 5 hitters that he faced on all sorts of different pitches. I think it was, he gets the slider was what he struck Ozuna out on. Let's see. Hilliard struck out on the fastball, and then Olsen struck out on the slider. So his ability, I mean, I see people in the chat mentioning it, the breaking stuff. It was the changeup. It was the slider. I hinted at this earlier. He threw the slider 26% of the time. He threw a changeup 24% of the time, a fastball 22% of the time, a sinker 16% of the time, and a curveball 12% of the time. When you have just a 14% difference between your most common pitch and your fifth most common pitch, it's got to be difficult as a hitter to be able to, okay, there's a reasonable chance I'm getting something soft, but if not, it's coming at me at 100 miles an hour.
Yeah, and as a young pitcher, like, guys when they first come up, I remember even Walker Buehler, he was getting by just by throwing gas, just straight gas. But
Yeah.
when a kid that young makes his debut and he doesn't have to rely on just pumping in 100, that is a hugely positive sign for his future.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, 5 innings, 4 hits, 1 earned, 1 walk, 5 strikeouts, 95 pitches. I was surprised, AJ, that they let him go that deep. He went 6 innings in his last start, but I'll have to go back and check my notes. I think he was only at like 75 pitches. So I was a little surprised that he even came out for the 5th. I was definitely surprised they let him finish it. Obviously, he looked good. It wasn't like the stuff was diminishing, but were you surprised to see 95 pitches from Miller?
I was so surprised that after the 4th inning ended, I tweeted out, "Wow, what a great debut from Miller! Showed poise," because I thought his night was over.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, his last start at the AAA level was his best start. 6 innings, 2 hits, 1 earned run in that one. Did have 6 strikeouts. But yeah, I mean, before that, it was like his 3.1 innings, 1.2 innings, and it just didn't necessarily come together. Let's see. I was looking for, he threw 76 pitches in his last outing. So for a 19 pitch jump, again, he's a young guy, so I'm not saying he's going to blow out his arm by doing it. Something, it just was interesting to me. He had a 19% whiff rate, which I would say is not perfect. I mean, it didn't seem like there was nearly as much swing and miss, at least early, but it felt like it developed as the game went on. So AJ, I'll just ask sort of the obvious question that's sitting on the tee here for me to set you up for. Gavin Stone was the first guy up. He's now made 2 starts. Neither of them has been good. Michael Grove is a guy that made his first rehab appearance, looked really good, was on the taxi squad for the Dodgers last week, seemed like an option to potentially give them some long relief if they need it. We know there are 2 holes in the rotation because Julio and Dustin May are both on the IL. Julio presumably just for 2 to 3 starts. I have to imagine that after this, Bobby Miller definitely gets another turn, right?
I think that the Dodgers have their hands forced here with all the injuries.
Yeah.
I think with not just his performance, because he was killer tonight, but I think just out of necessity, they're going to at least give him one more start, try to stretch that bullpen, try to help out the starters who are still out there in with Kershaw. And I think really with him, Grove or Stone, I could see them up here for at least a few weeks.
Yeah.
Which as we know, as Dodger fans know, is not typically the Dodgers' MO. Sometimes they like to flash the talent and then take them back to AAA, maybe save them up for a September call-up or a random October appearance in the bullpen. But I think with all the injuries and the inconsistencies from the bullpen, which not to nag on the bullpen, but I wouldn't be surprised to see at least 2 of those guys stay up when they're healthy, when they're ready.
And there was an update today, by the way, on Dustin May. Per sources, Fabian Ardaya tweeting, Dustin May won't even pick up a baseball for 6 weeks after receiving his injection. From there, it's another scan, and a determination will be made on a pitching progression. So that's 6 weeks before he even picks up a baseball. Then we're talking, probably another 4 weeks at least, I would imagine, to start throwing, bullpens, building yourself back up. So not great news there for Dustin May, but it's softened. The blow is softened a little bit when Bobby Miller pitches like he does. So just to kind of, with 2 spots in the rotation, is it Miller and then Grove or Stone? Like, who, if Miller gets another try, does Stone get another try and Grove makes another rehab appearance? Do you think Grove takes Stone's spot? How do you see this playing out?
I'd say it's more likely that Grove takes Stone's spot, even though with Michael Grove, there's been, it was a little inconsistent, but like I think you said earlier, by most reports, he was kind of the most major league ready.
Yeah.
And because at this point, the Dodgers just need these guys to eat like innings. We don't need the second coming of, young Clayton Kershaw from them. We welcome it, obviously.
Yeah, I was going to say, we won't complain if Bobby Miller
won't complain if they come in and shove. But the Dodgers just need some innings from these guys. And if they can give us that, if they can come in and give us 4 or 5 starts, like even if they pitch 4 innings, give up 3 runs, pitch 5 innings, give up 4 runs, like with the Dodger offense, that is more than what I think you can ask for from the young guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And as some people are pointing out in the chat, the question is who's going to make this next start. But when you look ahead to the schedule, it's the Sunday start against the Tampa Bay Rays. And so is it going to be Gavin Stone? I tend to side with you. I wonder if Michael Grove gets that spot just because Stone's first 2 appearances have been so underwhelming. Not to say that Gavin Stone, like we're writing him off, but I just think Grove clearly was ahead of both of those guys when he was healthy. He's now made a rehab start. He made a lot of pitches. He looked really good. The velocity was up. And so I just wouldn't be surprised if Grove gets the Sunday start and then Bobby Miller is back on track to pitch again next Monday, against Washington. So we'll see how that plays out. Whoever does take that spot, Grove or Stone, would likely pitch against the Yankees the following weekend. And you could see Bobby Miller against the Yankees as well. So talk about some fireworks you've got coming as you project out the rotation a bit. Michael does mention you could piggyback Stone. What do you think about that, AJ? Like a Stone starts and then Grove comes in after him. Do you think the Dodgers would mess around like something? I mean, I'm asking because that would, in theory, buy your bullpen a day. If you look at those 2 guys and say, can we get 7, maybe even 8 innings combined between Stone and Grove? Would you kick the tires on something like that next Sunday?
If they could do that to get the bullpen like one clean day, maybe only have to use 1 guy out of the pen.
Yeah,
I think that would be a brilliant move. It gets the young guys experience. It gets them on the mound against a very, very maybe even historically good team.
Yeah.
I don't see anything but upside with that decision.
The only thing is I'm looking at the schedule. They are off Thursday and they are off the following Thursday. So it's not like you're necessarily facing a long stretch. That said, that Sunday start would be right in the middle of a stretch of, whatever it is, 6 games in 6 days. So you get Friday, Saturday. They could probably just play it by ear. If Friday and Saturday you've had to get 8 or 9 innings out of the bullpen in those 2, we're not hoping for that. Then maybe you say, hey, we're going to, call up Grove and keep Stone around and just say, hey, between the 2 of you, figure this one out. So we'll see how that one plays out. Let's shift real quick because we're sort of burying one of the storylines of this game, AJ, which is the Dodgers offense. They end up scoring 8 runs in this one. And the production came from a lot of different places. I mean, obviously you've got Will Smith cleaning things up. Some call him the janitor because of how well he cleans up, AJ. An RBI single for him in the top of the first. A 2-run double in the second. Jason Hayward tacks on a solo home run in the second as well. You've got a Max Muncy RBI single, which feels misleading considering how hard he smashed that ball off the wall. Just a great play out in right field. And then JD Martinez puts this bad boy on ice with a 3-run home run in the 9th inning. I'll let you share the stat you shared with me right before coming on. But the moral of the story here is the offense seems to have found a groove.
Yeah, the Dodgers have now scored 5+ runs in 6 straight games, and that's 5 or more.
Yeah,
because obviously tonight they blew that total out of the water. It's funny with the Dodgers. It's easy, especially if you watch a lot of the games, because you tend to fixate on the negative. Guys like Taylor who are struggling, guys like Rojas who are struggling, Peralta, although Peralta's picked up a little bit. It's easy to see that and be like, man, they just don't look good. I mean, like even Max Muncy has had a rough stretch since he's been sick. But they're scoring runs, and at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how you're getting that production, because the guys who are hot now might slump later, and the guys who are slumping now might be hot later.
Yeah.
If you're getting 5+ runs, 6, 7 straight games in a row, that's all you can ask for.
I mean, the Dodgers lineup, I know it has felt like underwhelming at times, but you just look at the raw numbers. Mookie Betts has got a 360 on base and a 508 slug. Freddie Freeman's got a 400 on base and a 560 slug. Will Smith's got a 406 on base and a 552 slug. Muncy's got a 353 on base and a 520 slug. JD Martinez now up to a 575 slug. Outman's at 497. Hayward's at 477. I mean, they threw 7 guys out there tonight, AJ, with a 477 slugging percentage or higher. I'm not saying 477 is some magic number. I'm just saying if your 7th best hitter has a 477 slugging percentage, I mean, the OPS is well above 800 for Jason Hayward. The OPS is above 800 for James Outman. Obviously, Peralta and Rojas, not awesome for the Dodgers, but to go 7 deep in a lineup like that with Miguel Vargas getting a night off, it's pretty impressive stuff for the Dodgers. And I don't feel like maybe the lineup is talked about, the offense is talked about in a way that acknowledges that. Will Smith gets his flowers for how good he's been. Freddie Freeman has been insane, but 7 guys with OPS is that high. That's like, we should be talking more about that.
Yeah, and some of it is like the whole the three true outcomes thing. So yeah, it can be a little frustrating as a viewer to see a bunch of guys strike out. But if you're still scoring 6 runs in that game, at the end of the day, who cares?
Yeah.
Every baseball nerd's favorite movie, Moneyball, because he gets on base. Like,
yeah,
they're getting on base, they're scoring runs. It doesn't matter when you have guys like Freeman, who's got a 13-game hitting streak, guys like Smith, who in his last 15 games he's hitting 333, 446 on base, 569 slugging percentage. JD Martinez in his last week, 333 with a 800 slugging percentage, not ops, slugging percentage. There's nothing to complain about.
Yeah, let's talk JD Martinez real quick. Are you all the way in? Like, is he back? I'm not saying we're going to get peak JD Martinez, but we were joking about in a text with some friends that, there were stretches where maybe there were some questions and some doubts. Like, I would never say I was out on JD Martinez like it was going to be a total bust. I think there were stretches where it was like, I mean, is this just going to be like a 110 weighted runs created plus guy that we're paying 10 million to be in the DH? Like, it's not the end of the world. He was never their biggest problem because of how bad some of the guys at the bottom of the lineup were hitting. But, and again, I'm not saying we're getting like borderline MVP level JD Martinez either. You mentioned how hot he's been. He has 3 home runs in his last 5 games, something like that. I mean, who's the real JD Martinez in this situation?
I'll admit to some bias. Anyone who takes the place of Justin Turner on our roster has a long road up for me. But JD Martinez does have a history of being an elite hitter, not a good hitter, an elite hitter.
Yeah.
And sure, he might be a little older. He's getting up there in years. The bat speed sometimes looks like it's not there. But the last week, the bat speed's been there.
Yeah.
And getting this kind of production from your DH, that's really like the most thing that you can ask for. And he looks back to me.
Yeah. And I mean, look, the conversations around JD Martinez had oftentimes circulated around what you do in games when Will Smith isn't starting at catcher. And the Dodgers have not put him at DH almost, at all, unless JD Martinez was out for some reason. And JD Martinez is starting to reward them, because if JD Martinez hits like this, what's ironic is he's still not as good as Will Smith from an OPS perspective. I mean, the 800 slugging percentage he has been, but it at least makes it easier to stomach when you say, okay, like if you're going to have Will Smith sit and he's not going to play DH, at least let the guy be a massive upgrade offensively over sort of a league average player, which is what JD has turned into. I keep joking, stretch out the hammies, JD. Let's see if you can shag a few fly balls in left field just so we can get both bats in. I don't think that's ever going to happen, AJ, right? Like, there's no chance you trust this version of JD in the outfield.
To put it kindly, no, I don't think, especially when you have guys like look, Peralta's not been great at the plate. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but he's been terrific in the outfield.
Yep.
When Taylor's struggling at the plate, he's terrific at any position they put him at. So you have those corner outfielders there. They're going to use them. They're not going to put Martinez out there. And I would say we probably don't want them to.
Yeah. I mean, hey, the offensive upgrade of getting Smith and JD in there is one thing, but maybe it's just a day off for JD every once in a while. So
it's considerable, but I don't think they'll do it.
Well, let's get into the player of the game, AJ. Start throwing your responses here in the comments. Who's your player of the game tonight? Is it Bobby Miller making his debut and looking good? Is it JD Martinez with another home run? Is it Will Smith with a big day? Here's the box score look around real quick. Mookie Betts, 1 for 3, 3 runs scored and 2 walks. So a great game from Mookie at the top of the order. Freddie Freeman, 1 for 4, a quiet night for him with a walk. Will Smith, as I said, 3 for 5 with 3 RBIs. Max Muncy, 1 for 4. He had that RBI single that was smashed off the wall with a walk as well. JD Martinez, 1 for 5 with 3 RBIs. Jason Hayward, 2 for 4 with the home run. Bottom of the Dodgers order, tough one. 0 for 12 with 6 strikeouts for Peralta, Outman, and Rojas. On the pitching side, we mentioned it. Bobby Miller, 5 innings, 4 hits, 1 earned, 1 walk, 5 strikeouts for him. Gets his first career win. You got another scoreless outing from Yency Almonte, 3 strikeouts. Gratterall, an inning, 1 hit, 1 strikeout. Phillips, an inning, no hits, 1 walk, and a strikeout. And then Victor Gonzalez with a perfect inning and a strikeout. So the bullpen gives you 4 innings, 1 hit, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts. So lots to choose from here. I'll look through the chat real quick. Bobby easily is what I've got so far. Swagmaster Dank, Will Smith guiding Bobby Miller. So he's giving him credit for calling a great game, which Bobby Miller mentioned in the post game. Give me your choice, AJ. You going with Bobby Miller in his major league debut?
Am I allowed to cop out and say you got to give it to the battery?
No, I asked AJ Gonzalez and not Scott Gierman to come on the show tonight. So you're not allowed to sort of ride the middle line here. You've got to make a choice.
All right. I'm going to say Bobby Miller because I think a lot of us were talking about the over under. I think you guys on our last show, we're talking on the over under on whether Miller was going to go 3 innings, maybe 4.
Yeah.
He gave us 5 innings of 1-run ball against one of the best offenses in baseball.
Yeah.
That was really helping a very beleaguered bullpen of ours that's been on a long stretch of no rest. I'm giving it to the kid who made his debut. I'm giving it to Bobby Miller.
Yeah, I think it's the right choice. I mean, Bobby Miller was great. Obviously, it wasn't perfect, but when a rookie comes up and in his major league debut, I think Gavin Stone taught us and reminded us, I should say, just how difficult it can be for a guy to just come up and, you just assume, oh, he's a top prospect, he'll be fine, yada, yada, yada. Gavin Stone reminded us that these guys are human, that it's a big jump from even AAA to the major leagues. And so for Bobby Miller to perform as well as he did, and again, we've stressed it, AJ, you and I both in our comments earlier in the show, the fact that he got better and better as the game went on, I think was the most impressive piece there. So I agree with Bobby Miller. If we're doing a podium here, I think Will Smith has to be second, 3 for 5 with 3 different RBIs. And again, Bobby Miller said in the postgame show, hey, credit to Will Smith for taking me to the promised land. He said, I didn't shake him off a single time. He called a great game. He trusts him completely. So that's a good sign there. And then I guess we could go JD Martinez in that in the bronze medal spot. If we want to group the bullpen together, I'd be fine with the bullpen in that 3rd spot. Who do you have in 2nd and 3rd on the podium?
I think it's got to be Smith because not only did he deliver at the plate, but he guided the Rook to a great outing against a great offense. I'm going to reiterate again because that's tough. So yeah, it's got to be Smith. And yeah, I don't mind grading on a curve. I don't mind saying the bullpen also showed out because we've had stretches where our bullpen has been tough to watch. And Almonte is Almonte back? Yency looked solid today.
AJ, I'm not allowed to answer that question because the last time, not last Sunday, the Sunday before, I got on here and said, hey, this guy hasn't allowed a hit in 5 2/3. Yency is back. And he got shelled for the entire week. And I got tweets galore. So I'm not going to say anything about Yency Almonte, but 1 perfect inning with 3 strikeouts tonight as I nod my head on the video here was impressive for him. And by the way, again, we're talking about a Dodgers team that has struggled from a bullpen perspective of late, but for the bullpen to come out and do what in the last 2 days, I mean, Gavin Stone only goes 4. The bullpen combines for 5 innings, 4 hits, 1 earned, no walks, and 5 strikeouts last night, and then comes right back tonight with another 4 innings of scoreless baseball, just 1 hit and 1 walk, 6 strikeouts. It's hard to not give credit to a group that we've talked about how taxed they have been, how poorly rested, but for them to rise to the occasion with 2 rookies on the mound who combined for 9 innings, I think is really, really impressive. So I'm not answering directly the question of is Yency Almonte back. I'm just pointing out that he looked good tonight. The breaking ball looked good. The fastball looked good.
It was also impressive for them to rise to the occasions and not give in to the temptation to throw at Marcell Ozuna.
Yeah. Jeez Louise. Do you see him hit Will Smith again tonight?
I did, and honestly, I was kind of shocked that the benches didn't clear.
Yeah. Look, Ozuna, I'm glad you brought this up. He had a quote today that just about drove me up the wall. Let me see if I can find exactly what he said here. Here we go. Marcell, this is from Justin Toscano, who is the Braves beat writer for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. He said, Marcell Ozuna told me he didn't intend to hit Will Smith with his backswing. Ozuna said he's never trying to hurt anyone. He said Will Smith told him to, quote, clean it up, and that it was the 5th time Ozuna had hit Smith like that. Ozuna's suggested that Smith should back up when he hits. They pointed out today that Ozuna was not even in the batter's box tonight. He was about 3 inches outside of the batter's box tonight. And so the guy, I mean, it's just so pathetic. The fact that I think there was a tweet I saw earlier of all the guys that he has hit with his bat. It's not. Oh, here we go. It's the same guy, Justin Toscano. Marcell Ozuna said catchers know he extends his backswing. He said he has clipped Real Muto, Austin Barnes, and others. Those guys, he said, understand that they must back up when he hits. It's unbelievable. Like the fact that your response is move back further rather than when you're the only guy causing this problem. Like the level of blindness to
and
see
the fact
reality.
that and the lack of self-awareness to say in your response, guys know that I'm known for this. Oh, you're acknowledging that you have a reputation for hitting other people, which by the way, that extends to off the field, but I won't even get into that. Just making him sound like a really likable guy.
Yeah, and to be clear, today it wasn't necessarily on a backswing. It was he had swung all the way through, and then as Will Smith was standing up and Ozuna was basically unwinding his swing, he clipped the mask of Will Smith, who was already standing up. So it was just one of those moments where you're like, of course this happened. All right, let's get to some questions. If you got any questions or reactions to tonight's show, please throw those in there. Laura wants to point out she's not a big Marcell Ozuna fan. Laura, great to see you back joining us tonight. We appreciate it. But if you've got any questions, throw those in the chat. It could be about Bobby Miller. It could be about Gavin Stone. Blake Williams and I will be having a video. Be on the lookout for that tomorrow, talking about Bobby Miller and Gavin Stone, just sort of evaluating and diving a little bit deeper into that question of, do these guys get another start? Something to keep an eye on there. So stay tuned for that. But we could take questions on Bobby Miller. We could take questions on the offense. Max Muncy, you kind of mentioned it. AJ earlier, a guy who got sick, struggled a little bit. He did smoke a ball today, which I thought was encouraging. Again, it goes down as a single, but I thought Muncy is starting to look a little bit better.
Yeah, he was going back to taking pitches that he was taking when he was hot, pitches that were out of the zone. The thing with Max is that, like, even when he's hot, he's going to take a lot of pitches.
Yeah.
Like even strikes. But, aside from a handful of bad pitches that he was swinging at, for the most part, he was laying off of them. He had a couple of really hard hit foul balls. And obviously, like you said, that single in the box score doesn't really describe how hard he hit that.
Yeah, absolutely. Swagmaster Dank, great name here. Am I wrong to be worried about Outman? I was as high on him as anyone, but he looks lost. You look at the month of May, he's hitting 190 with 24 strikeouts and 73 plate appearances. So when you look at it that way, I mean, there's reason to be concerned. 78 weighted runs created plus in the month, an OPS of 637. So clearly, there has been some regression to the mean for Outman. We never expected what he was doing to be fully sustainable, but if the month of May, James Outman is who we're going to see, that's going to be problematic moving forward. So give me your perspective on what we've seen from James Outman and whether or not you think he can adjust back to success.
He's extremely talented, and I do see him adjusting. The thing is that the league adjusted to him. Like, anytime a rookie comes in and starts hitting the cover off the ball way more than they were expected, they're going to do some heavy scouting on him. And it happened pretty quickly that they discovered that he has trouble with the high heat. And Major League Baseball is a high heat league now. A lot of guys just throw high heat. And when that's your kryptonite, guys, especially like Spencer Strider, who was a brutal matchup for Outman tonight, are going to exploit that. But we saw, I can't remember how many games ago it was, when he got his home run again, a guy missed and threw heat down in the zone. Yeah. If he can start and adjust to just maybe waiting on those pitches and fouling off high heat or laying off, I think he'll adjust. He's not going to ops 1,300 for the year, obviously, like he was early on. But I think he could go back to where he's just like a very productive player.
Yeah, I think the weighted runs created plus type numbers are going to end up hovering a little bit above league average. I think there's going to be power, and I think he's going to give you good defense, and I think that's going to be enough to not really be having too crazy of conversations about James Outman, but that's just my perspective. Michael wants to know, now do you think Nick Senzel is worth getting? He has multiple walk-offs and has speed. I mean, look, I admittedly don't watch a ton of Reds games. The weighted runs created plus is still below league average, so I don't know what the cost would be to get a guy like him. He does have some team control, which is nice. He does bat right-handed, which is nice. I mean, these are the types of things that the Dodgers are looking for in an outfielder, but I just don't know. For me, AJ, if I just zoom this out, I don't know. I don't get the sense that the Dodgers are going to try and make a splash in the outfield anytime soon. I think maybe it's a guy who's been DFA'd or a little move around the edges would be my guess. I don't imagine that they're going to go out and make a trade this early in the season.
Unless Andrew Friedman pulls some kind of magic, pulls a rabbit out of his hat and gets a guy like Senzel for peanuts, which is not out of the realm of possibility. The Reds don't have the greatest reputation with their front office moves the last few years. So it's not impossible, but I don't quite see it happening. Admittedly, I don't know off the top of my head his splits against lefties. If he hits the cover off the ball, off lefties, maybe they'd consider it, though.
Yeah, looking up his splits, he is crushing lefties in 35 plate appearances this year. Let me see if we can get some career numbers for him. 281 career hitter against left-handed pitchers, but that's a 96 weighted runs created plus. So just 7 home runs and 285 at bats, 281 batting average, 329 on base, 421 slugging. So look, 96, nothing. Yeah, it's not terrible. It's better than what the Dodgers currently have, but
it's not making me pick up the phone.
Exactly. And speaking of, Laura wants to know, what do we do about Trace, AJ?
I honestly don't have the slightest clue what they're going to do about Trace, because I was expecting him to struggle and come back to earth, but I don't think anybody expected this long of an offer. I mean, we're in Chris Davis territory here with how much he's been struggling. And I don't know, he's not like elite enough with the glove to take starting days away from Peralta, because Peralta hasn't been, otherworldly either. He hasn't been great, but Peralta's really good in the outfield. And I don't know how many times he can take at bats from him, especially when his splits are reversed. I mean, he's not hitting anybody right now, but before, everybody was clamoring for the Dodgers to use him properly against righties, but like that's not the problem the Dodgers have. The Dodgers need a guy who hits lefties, and he's not hitting anybody. So I'm not sure. I could see by July, not anytime soon, but I could see by July, if they make a move or a splash, him going down. But I don't think it's happening anytime soon.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing with Trace is he's out of options, so it's going to be a cut situation as soon as it happens. I predicted before beginning of the season, one of my bold predictions was I didn't think he would last very long. I just think he's the last guy on the roster, and if something else comes up, then maybe they jump. But I think he's kind of the bar that anybody who has been DFA'd has to clear. Is this a better option than the guy that we have in-house? That's my guess. Nomo Splitter Derek asks a good question here. Do you think the Dodgers put a pitch count limit on Miller for the season? If so, is it too early to conclude that he may not be on the postseason roster? We talked about this earlier, AJ. We both guessed that this is way sooner than the Dodgers had hoped to have Bobby Miller make his debut. I'm guessing they wanted him to make his debut, but that they were hoping it would be like after the All-Star break. Instead, here we are on May 23rd. He's making his debut. The first half of this question is very easy. Yes, there will be a pitch count and an innings limit for Bobby Miller. The second piece of it is more interesting. Do you think there's a chance that because of, he was good tonight, we're not going to over exaggerate and just pencil him in for a 1 earned run for the rest of his career, but if he starts and stays in the rotation, I can't imagine he makes it all the way to the end of the season without hitting that limit.
Our own Dodger Blue account is notifying us that Dave Roberts said Miller's going to make at least one more start. I think, like you said, there is going to be a pitch count limit for sure. I think where that limit is and whether we'll see him in September or October depends on what happens in the next month. If the Dodgers' current pitching core is all out, is all hurting, all like injured for a long period of time, they might have to ride him through and hope that the guys come back from injury for October, or maybe he only makes 3, 4, 5 starts They put him down in the minors and keep his arm fresh. They don't shut him down. You don't want to shut him down. But maybe he still comes back in September, October, depending on how well he does and where the innings are at.
Yeah, I tend to believe that that's kind of how this is going to play out. I mean, keep in mind, they have 2 current spots in the rotation. We mentioned that Dustin May is out for a while. Julio Urias expected back off of the 15-day IL in the minimum number of days. And then, honestly, once he comes back, I could see Michael Grove being the guy that sticks in that number 5 spot while they're waiting for some other guys to get healthy. So, and I say that not because I think Michael Grove is better than Bobby Miller, but I say that because I think their goal for Bobby Miller is to limit the innings. And so if you've got Grove healthy, then let Grove eat up some innings. If he gets shelled, then maybe you bring Bobby Miller back. But like you said, let him get a couple starts at the major league level and then let him kind of settle in and rest his arm a little bit. Because look, the way he looked tonight, like that's the type of arm that you would love to have as a weapon come the postseason and maybe out of the bullpen. Even a guy throwing as hard as he does with the pitch mix that he has. We've seen young starting pitching prospects kind of turn into elite relievers temporarily as rookies. I could definitely see that being the case for a guy like Miller. You mentioned some quotes. Let me get to just some of these quotes real quick from Bobby Miller, from Dave Roberts post game. Dave Roberts said, quote, "He was really impressive. I thought he showed a lot of poise tonight. Did a great job managing his emotions and adrenaline. He showed just enough attitude and compete, a little edginess. He filled up the strike zone." Bobby Miller was then asked about the clubhouse celebration that he received. Quote, "It was awesome. I loved every second of it. There was some nasty stuff poured on me, but I loved it. You got to appreciate times like that. It's a once in a lifetime kind of experience." I'm trying to figure out what's the nasty stuff that we're pouring on Bobby Miller. I mean, normally, who knows what they have in there? I guess maybe there's, I don't know. I don't want to, maybe we shouldn't speculate, AJ. Maybe we should just leave that question alone and pretend I didn't ask it.
I think I might be able to answer it like without getting too off the wall here. He's a young guy. Maybe he thinks beer is nasty.
There you go. It's true. It's true. One last question here before we go. Alex Vesia, Michael wants to know what's the latest on him. The latest is that Vesia has been really, really good of late. Looking at his game log down at AAA, it's really, really impressive. His first appearance since getting sent down was terrible. This was back on May 4th, a third of an inning, 4 hits, 5 earned, 2 home runs allowed, and a walk. So 5 base runners, they all score. He gets just 1 out. Since then, scoreless inning, 3 strikeouts, scoreless inning, 3 strikeouts, perfect inning, 1 strikeout, scoreless inning, 2 strikeouts, scoreless inning, 1 strikeout, perfect inning, 2 strikeouts, and then 1 1/3 with 4 strikeouts. So he's been lights out. I could see him being a guy that gets a call up back up to the big league club here in a little bit, which is a good news, some good news for the Dodgers. For a guy like Vesia to come back. Because I don't think, at least I'll speak for me, I never thought he was broken. He just needed to hit the reset button a little bit for him to string together not just 1 or 2 good starts, but however many I just read off. I think it's 7 consecutive good starts. He hasn't allowed a run, just 4 hits, 4 walks, and I mean 3, 7, 9, 10, 16 strikeouts in his last 7 appearances. Stock up for Alex Vesia, and that could be a boost for a bullpen that needs it.
Yeah, because we can't just rely on Fergie, who's been great as our left-handed guy out of the bullpen. We need Vesia back, and it looks like he re-unlocked what he was missing.
Yeah, here you go. Bill Plunkett answering the question for us. Matt Moreno. It was beer, ketchup, mustard, relish, and shampoo. So that qualifies as nasty stuff. So
especially all together. Yeah.
I like this from Derek. Matt working hard tonight, reporting from the team, washes hands. Thankfully, this is a road game, so Matt doesn't have to be anywhere near the ketchup. We know Matt doesn't like any of those things on his hot dog. He just wants a little ketchup. So he's steering clear of the mustard and relish. So there you go. Swagmaster Dank. Would Miller's next start then be against the Rays on Sunday? That's 5 days away. It will be interesting. They do have an off day on Thursday. I would imagine that the Dodgers just keep their normal rotation. But to that point, they could throw Bobby Miller on Sunday if they wanted to. But my guess is either Grove or Stone pitches on Sunday and then Bobby Miller pitches on Monday. That's just my guess. Somebody also pointed out that Sunday game is an 8:35 a.m. game, AJ. I guess you're East Coast guy, so that's great for you. 11:30. That's perfect for you. So no complaints from AJ's household.
No complaints here. I love those games.
Okay, I've got one food question to send you out on. I tweeted this out yesterday. I know. You're part of the crew now. There was a commentary. I made a joke about chicken fettuccine Alfredo, and the comment that came back to me was, I don't like that. They don't want, I tweeted it out. They didn't want chicken was basically the short version. What did I say? I tweeted it out. What was let me quote my sources here. Fettuccine Alfredo is best without chicken. That was not from AJ. I'm asking AJ for his thoughts here. So I'll turn it over to you.
I've actually tried to eat really healthy, especially in the last month. So I'm going to speak historically. There is no meal not made better by a little meat, in my opinion. But unlike a lot of times, because I know especially Matt knows that my food takes tend to be pretty hot, no pun intended. I don't have a hot take on this one. If it's quality fettuccine Alfredo, it is okay without the chicken. But I mean, if it's offered to me, I'll always take it with the chicken.
Yeah, I'm a big fettuccine Alfredo. Give me chicken, give me broccoli in there. I like that combo. Growing up as a kid, the little Marie Callender's frozen chicken fettuccine Alfredo with broccoli. Oh man, sure. I could crush a family size one of those. So, we'll get into maybe on a future show. There was another chat that I was a part of in which we were talking about vegetables, and I'll just say Blake Williams' list of his favorite vegetables was interesting. It was long. I'll give him that. I'm not sure how many of them really qualify as vegetables, but I'll leave it there. So anyways, we appreciate folks for joining us. That's AJ Gonzalez. My name is Jeff Spiegel. As always, check out DodgerBlue.com for the latest Dodger Blue 1958 on social media. I mentioned right here on YouTube, Blake Williams and I will be having a show talking about Bobby Miller and Gavin Stone, their performances this week and how the Dodgers might handle the rotation. So be on the lookout for that tomorrow morning. If you're a podcast person and you're listening to this, thank you. If not, please check us out. We're part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, or Google. We greatly appreciate it. So Dodgers win 8-1. Bobby Miller victory in his major league debut. And Dodgers have taken 2 out of 3 going for the sweep in Atlanta. I don't think anybody saw that coming. So enjoy the rest of your night, everyone. And of course, go Dodgers.